all to the extraordinary Community and Leisure Committee meeting this evening. I would just like to remind everyone, particularly the members here, if you're in the chamber and you've got your laptop or a mobile phone or something like that, please make sure it's either muted and that no sound can come out of it. And if you're at home accessing via your own, you should access using a Swale Borough Council or KCC laptop to participate virtually. Just to remind you all that the meeting will be recorded and anything you say may be used against you should it come to it. I'd like to introduce with us this evening, we've got the Director of Regeneration sitting on my left, Emma Wiggins. Later on in the evening, should the internet allow it, we will have the Head of Environment and Leisure, Martin Cassell, who will be accessing the meeting remotely. Parking Services Manager, over on the left, Jeff Kitson. And behind me on the right, we have Billy Attaway from the community, from the Democratic Services, sorry. There is no planned fire drill tonight, but as we've got members of the public in tonight, there are fire exits right there and through them doors there. And if you go through that way, you follow the stairs down, make sure you don't use the lift. And the assembly point is the car park. We're assembling a far side of the car park in a group, and we won't re-enter the building until we are told it's safe to do so. What I would do is ask if any member or members of the public have any disability that may inhibit them escaping the building in the event of a fire. Could you please let us know so we can put measures in place to make sure that you are safely extracted from the building? Does anyone have any conditions that might limit them using the stairs and getting out? Brill. Well, hopefully there won't be a fire, and hopefully we will get through everything this evening without being interrupted. So if I can just ask Billy Attaway from Democratic Services if there is any apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. There's no apologies for absence.
Okay. And I also note that we do have two members attending remotely. We've got Councillor Worcester and Councillor Clark, and that's Councillor Simon Clark, and not a member of the committee, but in the chamber physically is Councillor Mike Whiting. If I could ask councillors if they've got any declaration of interest, either a pecuniary declaration of interest or any non-pecuniary declarations of interest. Agenda item 4 is the civil parking enforcement contract extension, and I'm going to ask Jeff Kitson if he could introduce the report, and then if members have any comments they want to ask or questions, please indicate. I will make a list and call people forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. This report references the opportunity to extend the civil parking enforcement contract for a further 3 years from June 2025, as allowed under the current agreement terms. The report sets out the excellent performance of Abcoa Parking UK, who have consistently provided services fully in accordance with the requirement of the contract specification, with excellent performance against all key performance indicators since 2018. The supplier has also developed additional services, including cash collection, count-in and bank-in from pay and display car parks and council premises, which now form part of the existing contract arrangements. Therefore, the report recommends the extension be agreed to enable continued civil parking enforcement and cash collection services from June 2025. Thank you.
Okay, I have one person down to speak, but just before I also mention that Councillor Elliot Jays is also online. even so he can have an input into the conversation or into the items, he won't be able to vote because he's online. Just before we start, I would like to just highlight, just so there's no confusion, that this is an extension for the civil enforcement, and then we'll open it up to debate. So Councillor Nundy first, followed by Councillor Last, followed by Councillor Winkless.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. It does detail the good work that has been done by the civil parking enforcement team. I'm pleased to see that they are meeting all the targets, and that seems to be quite consistent. In the alternative options considered, where it says about bringing the service in-house, how much would that cost? Because I appreciate you can't give an exact or definite amount because it would fluctuate if, you know, but by that point inflation will have gone up, etc., etc. But there's no sort of indication as to how much that would actually cost in comparison to how much retendering or not retendering, but how much keeping the current plan in place would be.
That hasn't been calculated, so I can't give you a figure on that. But what I would say is that the existing contract does increase in line with CPI inflation, which is understandable, but it is considered to be very good value for money. We're confident that if you were to go to market, the contract would be more expensive on the basis that, as an example, the NI changes they've increased recently, and so any new tenderer would obviously include that in on their price. But there isn't a figure, unfortunately, that hasn't been calculated.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just to add as well, I think what we're seeking is an extension to the existing contract, because obviously there are a lot of unknowns that could happen in the next couple of years, notwithstanding KCC's decision around, well, discussions around on-street parking, etc. So I think if members were wanting us to do, you know, look at an option of in-house, it's not necessarily for the extension, but that doesn't mean in the future it's not possible. Obviously, we'd need to do a business case analysis around the costings, and I, you know, would imagine that it would be costly, but we would need to do that work. This for today is very much around an extension of the current, so that we have time to see what is going on in the environment around us, and time to do a market testing, looking at different options, if that helps. So it's not a done deal.
Yeah, no, I fully appreciate that, and thank you. I do think that it's something that should be looked at. I appreciate at the moment it's probably the safest bet to keep the status quo and look at it in the future, but I really do think that we should look at doing that, because a lot of the time when services do get brought back in-house, as much as they're more expensive, they tend to work better. And so I think the cost effectiveness actually justifies that increase in spending. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I think going forward, what we need to do is to flag this and sort of say in 18 months' time we should be reviewing this to see how it's going to work and what options are there. But I think you summed it up as this is the best option at the moment. So I've got Councillor Lass, followed by Councillor Winkless, and then Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair. Just really a bit of clarification. Within the contract that we're proposing extending here, do we have the ability to vary the hours variance so that if we need more hours we can add it in? And or is it possible within this contract to choose to make the contractor go to sites which we might not at this moment in time have as needing enforcement?
Certainly in terms of the deployed hours, we deploy those hours very carefully into areas where we see the most contraventions. We would hope that over time that where we deploy those officers that we see an improvement in driver behaviour. So as we do, we then move those resources elsewhere. So we can absolutely move those resources as needed within those 15,000 deployed hours. What we can also do is buy more hours from ABCO if needed, if there's areas that we need to cover without depleting patrols within another area. So both those options are available, yes.
Okay, thank you. Just come back. That's just very clear, because we don't, like you saying, we don't know what's going to be like in 18 months' time. So we need to be not forced into a contract that we shouldn't be paying if we don't need it. That's all. Thank you.
Councillor Winkless.
Thank you, Chair. I've taken on board what the two previous speakers have said, and obviously very constructive comments. But I'm looking at 3.3 here, where it says it's been a 90% success rate with this existing contract. And I tend to be a believer, if it works, as the statistics are showing here, why change it? So that's my viewpoint on it. Stick with what we've got, but thank you.
I won't argue with that, and I think it's a good point, well made. Councillor MacDonald?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've just got one question. Do we know how many feet are on the ground? In other words, how many actual people they employ? It doesn't matter if you don't know at the moment, but
No, there
obviously if they're maintaining the contract, then it's adequate.
It is. We have 12 civil enforcement officers on average. I mean, what we tend to do, they're not on every day, of course, because that's a variable team. But what the important thing for us is those 15,000 hours, not just throughout the year. We make sure that on a monthly basis, we get those hours of deployed hours on street. Now, those 15,000 hours are not just for team meetings and that sort of thing. These are actual hours deployed, so available on street enforcement. So personally, I'm not overly worried if those hours are deployed with 10 people or 12 people, as long as those hours are deployed and we take close control over that. But yet, on average, it's currently it's about 12, but I'd say between 10 to 12.
I've got Councillor Worcester online, followed by Councillor Perkin. And it's Councillor MacDonald next, yeah? No, you just... Sorry. Councillor Worcester online, followed by Councillor Perkin, yeah?
Okay, just a quick one. Thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me to speak at this meeting. I just wanted to ask about 2.4. It's got schools visits conducted, which I assume means where they've attended outside a school to kind of help enforce the area around the school. I've had very good successes with civil parking enforcement over on the area of Sheerness, and I'd like to thank the team for the work they've been doing, especially around the troublesome halfway road closure, which has caused far more issues for them, I think, of late. What I would like to ask is, following on from Councillor Nundy's point, if the service was brought in-house, what would be the likelihood of us being able to squeeze in enforcement against idling engines at these school sites? Because obviously, for me, that would be value for money, because we'd have one set of people attending and be looking at both the parking and the idling engines issue. And the idling engines issue is a big problem for most schools in the borough. Thank you.
You all right with that, Jeff, yeah?
Yeah, I think in terms of engine idling, currently I understand the environmental enforcement team do deal with that through signage and various other things. In terms of civil parking enforcement, it's a little more difficult. Reason being is we work on evidence. Everything is evidence-based. And being able to provide evidence to a third party, which could be an adjudicator further down the line, effectively a court process, is very difficult to prove an engine actually idling within the limitations we have within the law. So civil park enforcement actually isn't a good mechanism, a good tool for dealing with environmental enforcement. If the laws do change in the future, then I'm sure we could adapt to that. But currently, civil parking enforcement legislation doesn't really suit engine idling as a contravention. But as I say, I do understand the environment team are dealing with that in terms of signage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Perkin.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, fully supportive of extending the contract. I think if it's working really well, there's evidence that it's working really well. And even if we want to, look at bringing it house or going out to further tender, then we need more time to be able to do that anyway. So fully appreciate the view of moving forward with it for another 18 months. My question is around how the data is rationalised as to where those hours go, and is that something that as members we can feed into, or is that something that's more of a kind of higher level spec?
Certainly, members can feed into that. Our enforcement is based on intelligence quite often. We tend to find, particularly with schools that was mentioned earlier, we would approach a school, we would tend to see a change in driver behaviour, but of course we can't be at that school every day. There are similar problems across pretty much every primary school for sure across Swale. So therefore those resources have to be moved around. Similarly with other areas, if we hear of a problem that we're unaware of, we would tend to move resources to that area. It doesn't mean we'll be able to constantly review that area, but we can certainly monitor that. So yeah, absolutely, I often get emails from members requesting patrols, and we deal with it through that way.
Okay, I appreciate you've got your hand up, but it's only members who can actually talk at the moment, I'm afraid. Thank you. I don't think we've got anyone else, so we can... Sorry, Councillor No.
Hi, thank you. Just a quick question regarding the parking enforcement. Will there be, or have not been able to find one, a means of contacting parking enforcement should you find issues?
Yes, there is. And I mean, Jeff might want to give it out, but it's probably easier if we email you and make sure that you have sort of the contact details and all members, so that all members can, if you've got a problem occurring, or you know something's happening in your area, and you think it might be worth letting parking enforcement know, then we'll send that information
I've looked
around.
for it before, I couldn't find it, so...
Okay.
But thank you very much, I appreciate that.
You all right with that, Jeff?
Certainly. On the internal email, there is parking SBC. So if you could drop an email through to there, we'll make sure that's then forwarded on to the enforcement team at ABCOA. And one thing I will say, which is important to mention, is we're not really a response service in that if you see a problem, very rarely would we then deploy resources to that problem in real time. And reason being is we could be, by the time we get there, the contravention could be gone, and therefore we've kind of lost resources. But if it's a consistent problem in a particular road, we'd certainly attend that and monitor that.
Okay, what we're going to do is going to move on to the vote now, and the recommendation is that members agree to extend the civil parking enforcement. Sorry, I've got to put my glasses on. Contract with ACPAYA Parking UK in accordance with the contract terms for a period of 3 years from the 1st of June 2025 to 31st of May 2028. I'll propose that. Do I have a seconder? Well, Councillor Nundy, I think your hand shot up first. So we move to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendation, please show. I'll make 13, yeah? Okay, that seemed unanimous, 13. There's no against? Anyone against? And no abstentions, 13, yeah? Thank you for that. And thank you very much to Jeff for coming along this evening to present the report. You're welcome to stay, or if you've finished. I will stay, that's okay. Yep, you might be needing, yeah, okay. So that brings us on to the next item, which is the overnight vehicle issues at various locations on Sheppey. So the officer going to introduce that report is Emma Wiggins, who's sitting on my left. Thank you.
Good evening, members, and good evening, members of the public that have come this evening for this item, I hope and assume. So hopefully people have had the chance to read through what is quite a detailed report of long-standing issues on this particular subject, where the report details a range of the issues for overnight parking at Shinglebank, Minster and Shellness Laysdown. It identifies potential solutions and requests permission to go out for formal consultation. Members are asked to debate those issues and to feedback really to us to consider those options and the consultation survey that's in Appendix 3 of this report. And we would welcome your feedback on that and obviously hope that you are in agreement to go out to public consultation. What I should say is we are very keen to go out to public consultation. That was made very clear when Councillor Palmer presented at Sheppey Area Committee. We want to seek everybody's views, and so we will be doing a thorough consultation and asking people to contribute before any decision is made. We are not here tonight to decide that decision doesn't work. We're not here tonight to make a decision, or you are not. It's about whether or not we go out to consult on the options that might be available. So I just wanted to make that clear. I think the report sets out the background to this subject matter, which is, as I've said, been around for a long time. There is a lot of emotion attached to particularly the shingle bank in terms of people's views, and they are conflicting and always have been. So I should point out that also you have in your pack in Appendix, hang on, I've got them around the wrong. Appendix 1 is the consultation outcomes, and Appendix 3 shows you a copy of a petition that was actually handed to myself and Councillor Palmer at the area committee, and as a result has been included here because it is important that that is part and seen as part of the decision that's being made, because it has several hundred people's views on an option that they prefer. I think also you have in your pack as Appendix 2 quite a few themed complaint areas. That's not every single complaint that we have received, but it shows you that there have been numerous complaints over the time. Any enforcement that should be taken along these areas, we just wanted to highlight, does come with considerable resource implications, hence why Jeff has stayed, because I'm sure there will be questions on that. But really, for tonight, it's about looking at the report, discussing what those options that you might want to send out are, so that we can get proper feedback, and then the March committee will make the decision on how we move forward with overnight parking on the island. I'll stop there because I'm sure there'll be lots of questions and we can come back. Thank you, Chair.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, I've seen two hands go up already. I'll read out who they are at the moment, and no doubt there are a few more, or three. But I'm going to ask, I don't know if Martin wants to say anything now or highlight any points.
No, thanks, Chair. I think Emma has covered it, summarised it really nicely. Obviously, lots of attention, and absolutely right that it comes to this committee for discussion. Happy to answer questions as they come, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So, I've got the first person to ask a question is Councillor Nundy, Councillor Whiting, one of the visiting members, and Councillor Noor. Oh, Councillor MacDonald, followed by Councillor MacDonald and Councillor Last, and then I'll see who else puts them up. So if we start with Councillor Nundy first.
Thank you, Chair. So over the past, well, probably since I was elected onto the council, I've received numerous complaints about the shingle bank, and most recently this summer I received a lot. But I also received quite a lot of emails from people saying they were happy with the situation. So I do think I'm frustrated at the length of time it's taken to get this to committee. I am frustrated about that because I know that I'm not the only councillor on the island that's been banging on about this issue. I know I can only really talk for the shingle bank because no one's actually contacted me about the one at Shellness. But the period of delay on consultation now concerns me that this might not be sorted by next summer, which is a concern that I have, and it's a concern that's been highlighted to me by other councillors and by some of the residents that I represent on the island. However, if we are going to have a consultation, we need to listen to the consultation. Whatever the consensus view on that is, we need to listen to. Now, I've looked at the questions that have been put forward, and I think that they pretty much represent what people have said to me. They represent the emails that I've received, both in favour and against. I think they reflect the concerns that were raised at the Sheppey Area Committee meeting as well. So I would like to thank the officers that have come up, that have written the questions, because I do think it's reflective of the issue, and I think it's reflective on what members of the public had said, and I think this is an issue that they really do need to have a real input on. We need to get this consultation out, encourage people to complete it, and then actually listen to what people have said. I'm not going to, if it's not the result that I personally want, I'm not going to go on to Change UK and get 3 million people to sign a petition asking for the decision to be overturned. But I will support whatever the result of that consultation is, because I just want to get this issue sorted. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I think it's important that the consultation goes out, and it goes out for a reasonable period of time over Christmas. So, I can see this coming back to the March committee, and once the decision's made in March, whatever that may be, following what the public have indicated to members. And it's up to members to make sure that their residents, their constituents are well aware. The parish councils know about it and they need to engage. So it's up to members to get this out as well, not just to say, well, it's out and let's leave it. But we all have access to other means of letting our residents know, and I hope members can use that. But I'll stop waffling. And busy member, Councillor Mike Whiting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just forgive me, because I've seem to have lost my glasses between the car and here, so I'm going to have to read this and squint at the same time. We'll try those and see what... Oh, perfect. Thank you. Right. Thanks for allowing me to speak, Mr. Chairman. I've had literally, like Councillor Nundy, I've had literally hundreds of comments from residents regarding this issue over the past year. And I'll try to summarise, if I may, what the residents are saying to me, at least. I think that's all I can report on. But first, can I say that while I welcome the report, and thanks to the officers and the proposals tonight, I do remain disappointed, like Councillor Nundy, that it's taken so long to bring this matter to some conclusion. I first raised this, as others did, during the budget debates back in February, suggesting that we suggested then, I think, a £25 per night camper van charge onto the shingle bank, with a similar charge for other car parks where the height restrictions don't apply. But 2 months later, the committee did agree to look at it in more detail, but the deadline for the promised report in September came and went, and it was even taken off the forward decision notice at that point as well. But we're now on the cusp, Mr. Chairman, of making some progress, which I welcome. However, during the intervening months, the issues got exponentially worse, in my view, with the whole beach, that section of beach now a campsite. A campsite, as members will be aware, with no running water, no electricity, and more importantly, no sanitation or sewage. Because the council's allowed things to get worse, it's become probably more difficult now to find a solution that's going to suit everybody. So back to the public, Mr. Chairman, and what they're telling me. By far the majority, they're saying to me to do one of three things: either close the shingle bank to all vehicles, close it to camper vans and caravans, or to charge a nightly fee for camper vans, say between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. Those three options do sit within the proposed consultation, and for that reason I'd urge your committee to agree the officers' recommendations and go to consultation as soon as possible. I think there is a recommendation in there, but Emma's looking... Sorry, I was distracted. No, okay. I've had this discussion with Emma over the last 10 or 15 years, but I would like to ask that the consultation be a minimum period of, say, 4 or 6 weeks. Those who respond usually do so within the first couple of weeks, and everyone with an interest in this, I think, has probably rehearsed their arguments in their own mind already. Once they were in the public domain and published online, I did publish the proposed questions on my Facebook page, and within a couple of days had over 90 comments and emails. So I think the public are attuned to what the questions are and what the issues are. And the final overriding concern of residents is we get on with it, that we set the new rules, whatever they are, that everyone understands what they are, and that they're properly enforced. And that last one, I think, is the most important for most of the residents that have contacted me. So if we can, Mr Chairman, get the consultation done, get the responses in, put this on the forward plan, please, and on the agenda for the March committee meeting, which is good, and we can have a solution in place certainly before the summer holiday season starts. Thanks for your time, Mr Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I do agree that the success or whatever is decided and comes back from the consultation. If we are going to enforce, we've got to enforce properly. And to highlight something that Councillor last asked in the report, it does say about extra hours being commissioned to enforce it. But I don't know if Emma or Jeff wants to say anything on that.
Just very quickly, Chair, because I'm not the expert and Jeff might want to jump in. The report does cover the particular issues surrounding enforcement that I think are really important to understand. And I think that's why a solution hasn't been found in the past, because it isn't a simple, easy thing. That withstanding, absolutely, we will definitely listen to what the consultation says. I'm conscious of Christmas period, so we were thinking that at minimum it would be 6 weeks. And that gives us plenty of time to analyse what comes back, ready for March committee. So that's my thinking. I think 4 weeks is too short given the fact that we've got Christmas. But, you know, we just need to be fair to everybody that wants to make a comment. You mentioned being properly enforced, and I think that for officers certainly is the conundrum, because we've tried different things in the past and it hasn't necessarily worked. I think that's fair to say. But that does not mean that we won't try, depending on what the outcome of the consultation is. But I think it's not simple. And I think we have a situation, as you say, that has exacerbated, and we heard it at Sheppey Area Committee for those that were there. There actually probably are two different type of users, actually, particularly on Shingle Bank. And so we have to be mindful and analyse the impact for all as well, so that we are fair and reasonable with the decisions that, well, members take. So, thank you.
And I think to bear in mind, there will be displacement. If you put measures in, that's why Shellness and Barton's Point. But Councillor Noor.
Thank you, Chairman. It's Councillor Noe, actually. Yeah, sorry, I am glad to see that this is finally going to consultation. I had two concerns over this, though. One of them was, has this consultation been done before they've looked at the damage to the flood defense, the potential damage with having camper vans up there? The other one is question number 4, the sensible price for charging for an overnight stay. I would like to see a bit more context in this, and the reason I say that is because there's 37 holiday parks on the island, 4 of them touring parks. Now, one of them is very comparable to Shingle Bank. It's the Clifftop Camping in Eastchurch. Now, they charge £15 a night, and it's pretty much exactly the same. There's no facilities, no anything. So by saying £10 a night, £15 a night, £20 a night, it's not really giving any context here. I would think that £15 a night would be comparable to the one that already exists with similar facilities, but every other park charges a lot more than that. They start at £40 and up. So I don't know if we need to include some kind of context here.
Can I ask Emma to come back on that?
So my understanding is that those fees are being suggested for parking with no extra, so nothing changes. It's just introducing a charge for what is currently not being charged. So we could look at actually putting context just to say no facilities offered. So it's not like if someone chose to say, oh, okay, let's charge 20 quid a night, but actually for that we're going to get X and Y extra. It's not that. So it's helpful, and thank you for your comparator, because £15 a night for similar would suggest that we're on the right track, but it may well be that people think, yeah, well, we'll ask people to pay more, but certainly it's not for anything other than what people have got now, because we just don't have the resource to fund that at the currently.
But
obviously
where
in the
do
future.
these, where have these prices come from? Are they compared to some other prices elsewhere?
There are some places in the country that do offer overnight stop without facilities, and some charge this. If you go too high, you may as well take the
Yeah.
chance and not pay and just pay half the fine. So, you know, I haven't had a fine for a long time, so I don't know what half the rate is, but it's about £35, isn't it? £30 to £50, depending where you've parked. These are just examples of what may be. And again, you've got to put it at a level that if we're going to put extra enforcement housing, you've got to try and recoup that loss, because this will be an expensive measure for the council, or could be.
It's just I wouldn't want to be undercutting a local site. So, yeah.
Well, I suppose free of charge is really undercutting.
Yeah. No, but any new charges, that is. Okay. All right, thank you.
And I'm sure that that type of comment will come out as part of the consultation and allow us then to respond to that and consider that as part of the final decisions that are taken. So I think we've got time, Councillor No, to have a look at that. And if you, obviously, I'm sure you'll be commenting on the consultation and we can pick that up.
All right, thank you.
No, Councillor Last,
Thank you, Chair. I really just got two general comments to this. I strongly support the use of CCTV, to look at officers going out to look at the use of CCTV, even if this outcome of this consultation is not to put parking charges on, because the areas we're talking about are quite remote and out of the way, and for community safety, it would be a good idea to look at it in that respect, not just the parking charges here. Secondly, I think the consultation of residents is all important, and we must make certain we do this properly. And by that, I don't mean just slapping it on a website, consulting parish councils. We need to contact the residents directly. Certainly those in Minster, Sheerness, Wardens Bay, Laysdown, so they are aware this is happening and not rely on word of mouth. And it also doesn't necessarily, as much as we do try and contact our residents, we sometimes just can't get round to everybody. So I do think we need to think a bit more about the consultation, about making certain we do get in contact with the residents and not just put it out into the media in a normal way. And finally, I hope whatever the outcome of this consultation is, that we follow it as a council and do what the residents want.
Online, we've got Councillor Worcester.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add a little bit here, because obviously Shingle Bank itself is in the neighbouring ward to Sheerness, which is my ward. And in Sheerness, we have quite a lot of experience of encampment work, good and bad, actually, positive and negative. So I've got two main points around this. One is that on your questionnaire, on the consultation options, I think it's really imperative that we also have the secondary conversation about, when we're looking at this consultation, there is nothing on there, quite rightly, because this is a parking issue, that talks about the welfare of those people that will be displaced. That is a conversation that I need to be reassured is happening at the same time as this consultation. So rather than just saying the words, we know there will be displacement, I think it's imperative members know and take ownership of what that actually means and what the support is that is coming about for those people that will be displaced. And the second element is that it talks about parish councils being part of the consultation. Now, it's great that Councillor Noy is in the room, because obviously she is part of the team that is trying to stand Laysdown Parish Council back up on its feet. And I think what we have to be aware of is how much is that going to displace helping that community to respond to this consultation appropriately. Areas like Minster and Sheerness are set up and ready to go for this sort of thing right away. So I think it would be a really good idea to have the consultation go out to all parish and towns on the island, especially with regards to the fact that the Laysdown area is part of a seasonal offering that the area has, where all residents of the island potentially take part in that area at different times of the year. So I think everybody's got a vested interest in responding to that consultation, and also making sure that, for instance, the residents have as much opportunity to respond, but really looking at how do we get the vulnerable people to respond, those without internet access, those without, for instance, permanent accommodation, those people that are really going to be affected by this change. And there's just two other points I'd like to make. One negative is that I've attended loads of open fires that are up on that shingle bank. It's very worrying for me that that's happening, and that people up there need that sort of support, and that what support they've got if something goes wrong there. But I will say for those people that on both occasions, or the two occasions where we've had major crashes at Barton's Point, those people on the shingle bank have been first on the scene, and it has been noted by lots and lots of people that the support those people have given to crash victims with a friendly help or blanket or something. So there are definitely two ways of looking at this, and I think absolutely all consideration needs to be given to all sides. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, and I think it's a good point. I think probably it says the affected parishes, and I think you're right. It probably will affect all the parishes, so we can change that if members are agreed to all parishes on the island. I think that makes us sensible. So when it comes to the recommendation, I will read it out slightly amended if everyone's agreeable to that. Anything else to come back on there?
Just to pick up on Councillor Worcester's point around the potential vulnerable people, particularly at Shingle Bank, and it's a conversation that I've had with Charlotte Hudson, Head of Housing, and we are aware of that community. Whether or not they are intentionally or unintentionally homeless, I'm not going to comment on that here, but to say that absolutely within the housing team, it would have to be something that we would have to consider. That does put resource implications in place, but it's within our duty to look at where we can, supporting anybody that is vulnerable in that way. So rest assured that that is being done in parallel, because, as you say, if there are people that are there out of choice or not choice, I don't know, because of that wider issue that we're not here to discuss, but the housing crisis that we see ourselves in. So yes, it's not a great situation, and we can make sure that we look at that welfare element. Thank you.
And I would imagine that displacement, I read that as being, they may well say, well, we're not welcome here, or we don't want to stay here anymore, and they move somewhere else. And that may be within the borough, but yes, there isn't. It's a valid point. I also see that Martin's got his hand up, so I'll let him come in case he's got anything to add. Thank you.
Yeah, Emma said most of what I was going to say, but certainly what the report tries to highlight is that there's really two different issues here. There's the short-term visitors, which we think obviously overnight charging or enforcement will look to resolve, and there's those that are effectively living on the bank particularly. But again, we've had similar situations at Shellness. So although a lot of the talk tonight is about the Shingle Bank, if we did nothing at Shellness, all we would do is displace the issue up to Shellness. And we've done a lot of work, as the report says, at Shellness and at Shingle Bank, some with varying success. So therefore, that's why we wanted to look at it as the whole. So I wholeheartedly agree that it's a terminology thing in my report, probably, but it absolutely needs to affect all parishes. I've actually, I think we've just agreed, Richard, to go out to Minster Parish Council early in the new year, and I'm happy to do the same for Laysdown, particularly as the two main areas. So happy to come out to those meetings and answer any questions they've got. And it obviously gives another opportunity for those local residents to visit somewhere within their locality. So that counters, that picks up some of Councillor Last's concerns around making sure we get to different levels and all areas of the island. So more than happy to do both of those. But yeah, certainly those vulnerable people. It's a cross-department approach, and not necessarily the same approach that we would have with those that we were just enforcing because they were there for a night or a weekend.
Okay, Brill, thank you. Councillor Neil.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. First off, I think, I agree with people that it does need to be a concise consultation period, and also, as has been mentioned, it needs to be a meaningful consultation as well. I'd just like to ask, I've seen reports that the Shingle Bank is both Swale Borough Council and Environment Agency. Who actually has that? Because I've seen reports that says it's the Environment Agency and they're responsible, they own it and they maintain it. And I've also seen that we own it and maintain it. So which is which?
We have been looking at that, and I think I'm going to go back to Martin because I think he may give the better answer than I.
I'm not sure about that, Chair. I think the answer is, Councillor Neil, we're not entirely sure at the point of this meeting tonight. There's been custom and practice, as many have known over the period, and today there has been information that suggests that the custom and practice may not be there. So we need to do a bit of trawling through. I guess from our point of view, our original stance, as detailed in this, was that we own the land. And the Shingle Bank itself is a defence, and therefore is the Environment Agencies. But they've come forward with new information today. We will look at that. Either way, whether we own the land underneath it or whether we own the whole thing, the control sits with you as a committee in terms of deciding how that asset is moving forward. So once we've had that consultation, then obviously we will come back with a final report to this committee, laying out some of those elements in a slightly different way to tonight. So yeah, not entirely sure at this point, but either way, we're the ones in the decision point.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I wonder if there's somebody who could do a couple of things. One, if someone could ask me what's the ratio of cars to camper vans on the site, generally speaking. Does anyone maybe up there know? I don't know.
Councillor Jays might know.
Yeah.
I regularly send pictures on my dog walk of the caravans that are ever growing. Caravans seem to increase from 3 earlier on this year, and I think there was up to about 15 caravans on the other day. They seem to be the ones that are there all the time, whereas camper vans seem to come and go, but I don't know whether they're dumped or people living there at weekends or weekdays, but you see people with vans marked up who park there and then they go out to work and come back. So it is being used as a residence rather than as somewhere to go and enjoy short-term holiday.
Thank you very much. That answers part of my inquiry. The other one is there anyone who uses that facility as a site, as a van user here, or is... I've just noticed that within this context of asking the questions, there isn't much reference to the users of it. We've ascertained that it's probably SBC in the space, therefore everyone's able to use it. Looking at pricing, I think we have to be careful with pricing, as Councillor Noe said. If you get up to £20 a night, that's £600 a month. So that's quite a lot of money. I think, yeah, there needs to be a bit more clarity in some of the questions and giving possibilities of can there be facilities there. I read the report, but there wasn't a report of isolated compost facilities rather than supplied watered facilities, which should be quite useful. There's now robust composting systems that are well under. So therefore, if you put pricing up, you're offering a facility that could be funded. So just something that might be worth bearing in mind. But going back to what Dolly Worcester said, I'd have to say the same, that there'll be a lot of people that probably use the space, whether they put themselves in that position or not. So just being aware of them, really. and then but also being aware of locals that use it feeling safe and feeling that it's not a littered or used site. So trying to get those balances, I guess. Thanks.
I mean, I would say it wouldn't be practical to put facilities there on that particular site if you're talking about the shingle bank. I don't know if you want to. It just wouldn't be practical. Councillor MacDonald.
Thanks, Chairman. Sorry to put the clock back, but the land was inherited by Swale from Sheppey Rural, originally Sheppey Rural District Council, and then Queenborough with Sheppey when that was merged. So my mother served on Sheppey Rural Council. I would like to say there's no such thing in this world as a free lunch. And I can understand people squawking on that they want something for nothing, but it doesn't work like that because there are on costs regardless. So my own view is that it ought to be something like £10 for a 24-hour period. Now, in Sheppey Rural District Council's days, as I say, when my mother was serving on it, there used to be an old boy going along with a bag and issuing tickets. And OK, it wasn't £10 a night then, but the whole of the shingle bank and the lees and obviously Laysdown, there was a charge. So, you know, I can understand people squawking that they don't want to pay anything, but I'm sorry, but there are on costs, and we know, and I can't see any reason at all why we shouldn't go back to it. And I have suggested that sort of £10 a night or £10 for a 24-hour period would be sensible with a ticket, quite frankly. I know the machine was put up there and that was smashed. What a surprise. But anyway, that's my own view. And I think we should charge there, quite frankly. And if it's £10 a night, then, I mean, at the moment it looks, well, it doesn't represent the local population. I get ever so many complaints from people locally, and I serve, as you know, apart from this Swale, I serve on Minster Parish and Sheerness Town. And I know up the island at Sheerness, I know that very well. I do own a little tiny bit of the beach a lot further on. But so I do know the area very well. But, you know, if you're providing a service, then you need to charge. And I would suggest a sensible charge. I think I'd probably disagree with Councillor Whiting. I know he said 25 quid, but I think that's a lot of money, even, well, certainly even for me. So I think it will sort out the people who are just extracting the Michael, quite frankly. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And I don't disagree. Once the consultation comes back in to look at what the charge it is, and that will be decided by another committee what the actual rate is. Anyway, I can see a member of the public has his hand up. Unfortunately,
I know that you said that. This gentleman here said, does anyone up there know about it? I actually pay council tax to Swale, so a chalet fee, and we actually go to Canterbury for £4 a night. We go to Canterbury for 24 hours.
okay, all right, but that's all things. With due respect, it's very, very points, and that could be made during the consultation. Yep, yep. I appreciate that, but thank you for drawing it to our attention. Yep, and if you write in before a meeting, you can always ask to speak. Sorry, say that again. You have to write in and say, can I speak at a meeting? But you know, the details are on the website and the details are about. But we've got to move on. Councillor Perkin.
Thanks, Chair, and also Councillor Whiting, I handed your glasses in at the reception downstairs. They were by the door. So I'm all for consultation. My concern with consultations is they are quite often self-selective. So you will get a group of people who will respond to them that are often the people that are not as impacted by the decisions as the people that don't respond to it. So I think we have to have some view to the balance of that. And I think that going out to consultation is really helpful, and we will get a steer from the public. But I think actually there's way more conversation that needs to be had post that steer, because the consultation could come back really heavily, want to charge £40 a night and clear everything off of the site. But there would, you know, even to charge, you would need AMPR cameras, you would need charging machines, you would need, if you were going to put it out to third party would be collecting all of the money, so the council wouldn't see any of that. And actually I find third party parking companies can charge an absolutely extortionate amount of money in charges, which are I feel uncomfortable about in terms of kind of free access to land. I think also, you know, the displacement is going to be a decision that we need to look at, and regardless of what comes back in the consultation. So I think the consultation is an important part of going out and asking people what they would like. But I think we do also have to be very conscious that we can't always deliver what everybody wants. Like, that's not a thing the council can do. We don't have the budget to do that. We don't have the staffing resource to, you know, bring all of this in-house and be able to manage it that way. So I think it's really important that we don't see the result of the consultation as the end point. The result of the consultation is a part of making a really big decision that potentially is going to cost the council a lot of money, and whether that money is best spent on that particular subject when we have people who can't feed their children is another discussion to have. So yes, fully supportive of going out to consultation, but I certainly don't think the result of that consultation is the end point that some people have suggested it might be. Thank you.
Sorry, I've noticed Martin's got his hand up. Do you want to come back on anything?
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to pick up a couple of the points from the councillors so that people can consider them. I'll take them in reverse order based upon completely agree with Councillor Perkin, and actually when Councillor MacDonald had said around you know, a decision on pricing, I'd written down that the next report that comes in March needs to give you guys a bit of a business case to show how that works in operation. So that backs up Councillor Perkins' report, which is the consultation is absolutely a steer, but we as as officers and you as councillors need to consider things in the round to be able to do that. I can always rely on Councillor MacDonald to take me back to older times, and I started my career with that bag of money walking around tennis courts, Councillor MacDonald. So I wish it was that simple and easy again. The Councillor Thompson, really interesting question around that ratio of cars and vans. It's changed dramatically in the 8 years that I've been at Swale. And certainly we used to have a high proximity of cars on there during the day, and then a few overnight, and then obviously that's grown where people are now staying there more consistently. I think that is actually displacing some of those cars that are using it during the day. So that is absolutely a consideration. We've had some of the comments from public saying that they now don't choose to go to the Shingle Bank during the day for their dog walk or to eat their lunch next to the sea because of what they find when they get there. So I think that ratio of usage is super important. And then I would just reiterate the point. The report is pretty dismissive around the ability to put facilities in there. There's certainly no electricity and water in any close proximity. We're probably looking further down the road towards the White House for those. So it would be fairly expensive. And picking up on Councillor No's point, I'm not entirely sure whether Swale wants to be an operator of overnight accommodation in direct competition with some of the businesses on the island. But I do think we need to look at ways of deterrence to stop some of the behaviour. So again, it's all about that balancing act.
Okay, according to my list, I've got 2 speakers left. Councillor Moore, followed by Councillor Jays. Now, if I can just say to the members of the public, I did say that you could come in to speak. However, on committees, it's not normal that members of the public can come in to speak. However, if you wrote in with a good case and there's people in favour and against, then it's up to the chair and you might be afforded the opportunity. But what we can't afford is a general discussion from the chamber, from the public gallery. So, over to Councillor Moore. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Really, it was sort of Laysdown is there's a lot of residents in Laysdown. I know Councillor Worcester was saying, obviously, that everyone has a vested interest in Laysdown because they visit and things like that. But Laysdown has a very big residential population as well. That we are trying to, yes, we have just recently, and we are trying to bring Laysdown Parish Council back up to full capacity. There is a lot of other avenues of consultation that are available throughout the island. The Sheppey support bus is starting back up, which goes all round the island, including Laysdown, Minster, Eastchurch, which you could put your flyers on. You could put there is lots of places. Go to the parish councils. All the parish councils would be welcome, and even organisations. Speak to youth organisations. See what the younger people the younger residents of the island think of it. Let's include, like you say, you want to include we want to include everyone. Let's see what other communities and organisations can help within the consultation, even if it be filling in, someone sitting next to someone filling the form in for them because they may struggle with reading and filling in forms. Let's sit and help. We'll get more support that way.
I think that's an excellent point to make because, as I said earlier, it's not just the council who needs to try and get this out to as many people, but it's you as the ward councillors. And you probably know far more organisations in your little ward and people who can spread it about. I just have to walk into the sheep sweet shop, tell Carol, and everyone in the village knows. So there's ways of getting information about, and ward councillors are normally on top of the ball on that. Thank you. So that brings me, I think, to our last speaker, which is Councillor Jays.
Thank you, Chair. I think what we're hearing from members is we need to find the right balance, and the aim must be so residents and visitors can enjoy this area for short-term periods. I think this is one of the top issues that residents bring to the Island Council's attention that affects the island that this council can influence. In the report, it says about going out consulting the public. Is it the public we want to consult, or is it residents we want to consult? Do we want to just focus on Swale? We don't want someone that stayed there back in 1956 to comment from Scotland or Wales. I think perhaps we might need to define what we mean by public. I think we mean residents. Swale was previously charged here for car parking many years ago, and unfortunately that charge was removed, and that's why we've got the problem now. So, and Councillor Thompson asked about length of stay. Question 6, we're consulting on what length of stay, and I think that's one of the most important questions. And I know some members at the start today were concerned about this is going to be reported to a March committee, and so the decision might not be in place until the summer. I think you said, Councillor Nundy. We don't have to wait till March. We could hold an extraordinary committee in February. We could move our January meeting back to February. We could bring our March meeting forward to February. If members want to make a decision a month earlier, so be it. Whatever decision we make, we need to make sure that we keep it under review. And we mentioned helping residents and supporting this. I'll make sure that there's printed copies of this at the Minster Parish Council, and I'll even suggest that we hold a consultation evening, probably before couple of hours before one of our meetings. So we've already got residents aiming to come in, but I think we should send this out to consultation and see what we get back from our residents.
So I don't think I've got any more speakers from... Yep. So there's no more speakers. We can move on to the vote. I'll read out the recommendations. Oh, sorry. You've spoken already. Is it something urgent that you want to bring in, that you want to count?
Yes, sir. Yes, thank you, Chair. Sorry. Not much has been said about the recommendation about CCTV. I think members need to be really careful that if you're implementing CCTV in that area, we already have removed the lifeguards at points in Minster. This summer we had somebody get into difficulty less than half a mile away from that stretch. If Swale are thinking of putting CCTV in, I think we have to really outline what it's going to be used for, and for example, you know, where it's going to be facing, and for the public really clear on what they can rely on support on that for that CCTV. It's not going to be something that they can use instead of 999, for example, and I think we have to be really clear on that. Just wanted to bring that up. Apologies, Chair.
No, I think that's a valid point, and I think it's to explore, and the full details of the CCTV will probably be put in the next report that this is considered, if that's okay. So, I'm going to read out the recommendations. So, permission is sought to go to a public consultation on the preferred options or a range of options as set out in Appendix 1. Second one is all on-island parish councils are included in the consultation. And 3, that officers explore the use of CCTV provision to protect these assets. Can I ask for someone to... Councillor Jays?
Chair, can I slightly amend them? Very slightly.
No, we've just gone to the vote on it. Are you proposing? Okay. What's your amendment?
So obviously we said parish councils. It's very pedantic, but I think it should be affected town and parish councils for clarity. And on recommendation 1, permission is sought to go out to consult with residents.
No, I think my recommendation would be to leave one as it is. A public consultation includes businesses, local groups, whatever. And affected parish and town councils, or not affected, all parish and town councils are included in the consultation. I think that's a reasonable one.
You need to second
I know.
proposal on the parish.
Okay, so are you quite happy with that as it is, affected parish and town councils? Do we have a seconder for your proposal? That's the thing.
If that's all you accept from me, Chair, then yes.
Yep. Councillor Dundee. Who's happy with that wording? If you are, show your hands. Right, on the amendment, we're voting on the amendment of all on island parish and town councils are included. That's the amendment. That's how it will read, yeah? Is everyone content with that? Yeah? Go on, you want to speak on that?
Yeah, very quickly, Chairman, thank you. I think the form ought to show the residents of the various people that are making contributions, and frankly, they ought to be taxpayers in the area. In other words, if you've got an address where they're paying tax, then that's fine. Okay, otherwise you get all sorts of things to consultations.
You possibly can, but I don't think that's feasible with the technology. You've got to put it out to public consultation. Councillor Jays.
Sorry to come in. On the consultation document, are we collecting names and addresses?
Well, you have to. GDPR wouldn't allow us to see that. And
I'd never said we'd have to see it.
We'll come back and let you know. To be honest...
Well, I suppose, and email addresses, so that most surveys seem to collect email addresses so that you don't get post. I don't mind, but I just don't want someone to sit there one evening and type the same thing 500 times. So I want to make sure we've got a system where it's fair and individuals can reply rather than I mean, you could sit there and set up 500 different emails, but I think we've got to make sure there's a system in place that it's not abused.
Yeah, we certainly have done that before. It's not, we can absolutely ask for postcodes so we can get an idea. And to be honest, even more details than that, we will look into that. It's just obviously then we just have to be mindful of how we share, well, we wouldn't share, but just so we can get a sense of where people have responded from, if there's some people off the island, because they're more than welcome to. Thank you.
Yeah, we are all happy with the amendment of recommendation 2. Yeah. All on our island parish and town councils. Yeah. And Martin's on. Do you want to add anything?
Certainly not to impact the amendment at all, Chair. I was going to say very similar to Emma. I'm channeling my inner Phil Sutcliffe as comms manager, but we can certainly collect postcodes, and I think it's important that we, whilst we wouldn't report it down by individual postcode, what we would be able to determine was whether they were a visitor or a resident. And I think it would be really interesting to see the analysis on how people answer differently on that basis. So we can absolutely be able to break it down so that the committee can see how certain parts of different groups vote ultimately. So yeah, it's all possible.
Right. If we move to the vote on the recommendation 2 to be amended as just stated. Is everyone quite happy with that change? Just show your hands, yeah, so we can see. Councillor Nundy, are you happy with it? Yep. So that's unanimous, yeah? So there's no... Right. Now we're going to move on to the vote on the 3 recommendations. Can I have a proposer and can I have a seconder? Councillor Jays, and you put your hand up earlier. Councillor Noe, yeah? Thank you. So, we move to... Sorry.
Can I just, because there are people in the public gallery, could you read what those recommendations are so that everyone's clear on what we're voting on, please?
Yep, I'll read them again. They've been recommended. Right. Permission is sought to go out to public consultation on the preferred option or range of options as set out in Appendix 1. 2. All on island affected parish and town councils are included... Sorry, withdraw the word affected. All on island, parish and town councils are included in the consultation. 3, that officers explore the use of CCTV provision to protect these assets. We've had a proposer and a seconder. All those in favour of the recommendations as laid out in the report. I make that 12 for. Anyone against? Any abstentions? 12 for, 0 against, 1 abstention. Agree with that? Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, because obviously I think Councillor Whiting intimated that he may well have already started communicating on social media, which absolutely great and fine. Bear with us, we've got about a week-ish till end of Christmas break for officers. I've heard what people have said around different ways of getting the message out, so there may well be things we can do before Christmas in terms of links to councillors on the weekly update, social media, etc. But things like getting to parish council meetings will come after Christmas. And if we think we might want to do some form of leaflet drop or put some information out there, that's going to take a little bit more time to correct. So please be patient. There'll be bits and bobs, but not necessarily expect it to all happen pre-Christmas because we're going to need time to sort. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So the next item really is the forward plan, which I haven't got in front of me at the moment, and I'm just trying to get it up. Do you have a copy? No, I do. I think, yeah, if you can note what's in the forward plan. I think going forward, though, what we need to get is greater detail going forward what's coming up in the next 18 months. Even if it's fluid and moves up and down the list, at least we know what's coming up and have greater input. Councillor Shield.
Thank you, Chair. Is it possible to add to the forward plan?
It's possible to ask to add something.
If I could ask to add to the forward plan, I think it would be really helpful in the future if we as a committee have a presentation from the CCTV control room staff or manager to give us a breakdown on the success and what they're doing there. It's a really good operation that they're doing, and I've worked quite closely with Chelsea, their new radio officer, and they're doing some really good work, and I think it'd be good for this committee to see that.
Yeah, we'll come back. I think that's a good suggestion.
There is an annual report that's done, isn't there?
Yeah. But that's a good suggestion, because I think they're doing some excellent work, and I think members need to be more aware of what goes on. I've got Councillor Winkler, then Councillor Jays.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm totally in favour of going forward with this forward plan. I take the first item there, public space CCTV policy oversight review. Totally agreement. A great interest of mine, because I've actually now got CCTV monitoring Milton High Street. As you know, heavy lobbying and get the public, thank you there, nodding, police reports. I noticed one has gone up today by the car park, and I've seen Stephanie Curtis's reply, and this is certainly what we've needed. It also touches on the previous item. More CCTV, the better. Thank you.
No, well done, Councillor Winkler, because I know you've certainly been pushing that area. Councillor Jays.
Thank you. On the CCTV, obviously we could have the officers come here and present, but what we did previously as a committee before the last election of borough councillors was councillors were invited for a visit there. I think there was 2 or 3 different times and days arranged, and perhaps that would be more effective, seeing people hands-on with it than being spoken at.
Seeing it in real life rather than a recording. And also the invitation for the CCTV is also open to town and parish councils, so you might want to bring some of your people along to see what can be done and what can be achieved. Thank you.
I was in there just a few weeks ago checking on a new camera in my area.
Okay. Well, with that, thank you very much for a nice short meeting, and if I don't see any of you before, have a very nice Christmas and a Merry New Year. Thank you.